G'day folks, it's Vaughan here from the Mental Wheels Foundation, and while the rest of the officers are having some sort of a party, we're going live today for the sit-up challenge and got a very, very special guest today. But before we do so, a little update. We're up to the 4th of September, so we've been running the campaign now for 4 days. We've also already got over 200 participants on the campaign. We're over $8,000 raised, and we're well on our way to our goal. For everyone out there who hasn't yet joined, the sit-up challenge is 66 sit-ups for 21 days and invite 6 friends, and your goal is to try and raise $66. That's a lot of sixes, I know, but the reason for that is 6 times 66 is $396, and that's how much it costs to put someone through a MindSpot program, an 8-week program for someone who's suffering from depression or anxiety and has proven to be able to save lives. So that's why we're doing it for, guys, and we're really passionate about continuing to raise funds for researched programs that will help save lives. Today I've got a very special guest, and which I've been really looking forward to. She is a former national level netballer, and she is also an entrepreneur and has had an amazing success so far. She's had a career in both sports and business and brings over 15 years of experience in her role, and is an advocate for team management and leadership. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Alison Reynolds. We worked together for about 2 years back in the day, and that company, and also runs her own netball business as well as a whole heap of other stuff. So we've just invited her in. Here she comes. There she is.
Hello.
Hello.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. I am good. I've been very much.
Yeah. So you had a little bit of the man flu got hold of you.
The man flu hit me, although the man flu is pretty tough, right? So I'm not going to say that, but no, it's pretty hard with this sickness. So apologies, I've still got a bit of a husky voice, but yeah, I'm back at least. I can at least.
It's good to see that you're on the mend.
Yes.
How was your weekend? How was Father's Day?
Father's Day was awesome. We had a really great Father's Day. It was so nice to celebrate Chris and also my dad in the evening as well. So I don't know, my dad's always been so special to me, and now that Chris is my son's dad, it's even more exciting for me. So I was really pumped to celebrate that.
Fantastic. Look, we've got a few questions. We've already sort of had a chat. We're most likely going to go way off script at some point. But we're going to encourage that. First off, I just want to sort of dive into, going from a national level netball player and then to a thriving entrepreneur. It's especially inspiring for me after working with you. Realistically, when you were first getting into the workforce, I guess, obviously you'd had jobs beforehand, but you were super passionate, super, I guess, eagerness to have a crack at anything to be successful has always been, I think, one of your big attributes. But, was there a pivot point moment, pardon the pun, going for the early netball pivot action at the start in your career when you realised that the significance of maintaining a healthy mental state, like going from the athlete to the business, was there a pivot point there for you?
Look, I was thinking about a very similar question recently, and there certainly was at that point, but I have to even probably go back a bit more from there as to what was a real change for me in terms of how important mental health was. And I'm honestly going back to when I was quite fortunate in that I was quite young, I think, when I worked out the importance of mental health. It was before it was really even spoken about. It was before anything kind of, there's so much about it now, which is so good. But I would say I was about 11 when I first sort of sat down and I asked Mum to buy me just a blank book, right? And I started writing in there, which I didn't know at the time they were called goals, but I started writing there, okay, this is what I want. And at the back of that book, I put, I'm going to be a New South Wales netball player. It wasn't, you know, it was just my ultimate, that's at that time when I was 11, that's what I wanted. And so I worked out at a very young age that if you set yourself, you know, you have a vision and you have steps and processes to get there, it gives you a purpose and it gives you something to achieve. And I think that process set me up for the rest of my life thus far, with what I was going to do. Then to your point of that kind of changeover between netball and business, a similar sort of thing. I had written down, I'm very goal oriented, and I wrote down, I guess, exactly what I wanted to achieve and, you know, the ownership of a business and those sorts of things and steps and processes to get there. I think, you know, I've always had an understanding that it doesn't take a minute. It takes a long time, a lot of the time, to get to where you want. But really fortunate that I learnt that lesson at such a young age.
Yeah. All right, we're off script already. Let's go. So what age were you when you first represented the state?
I was 16
okay.
when I first got picked up for New South Wales, which was really cool. So even from that time, it's not a overnight success ever. Yeah. It took years to get there and years at a really young age of working out what kind of worked for me. I was very fortunate along that time to have a couple of really great coaches, one in particular who was an ex police officer, so super disciplined guy, really pushed the whole mental health space, really helped me with what you're doing is goal setting, but let's really tighten it up. What do you really want? How are you really going to get there? What are the day-to-day things that you can do to achieve that goal? Which really helped.
And so on that, like, was there, you know, obviously coming around to routines, your daily routine, has that changed much over time? Or is that, you know, being someone who's goal focused, is that more, has that been about, you know, having a fairly strict daily routine?
Very much so. I think, again, when you're young, it's sort of a little bit different. I mean, you're kind of, life kind of sets it for you in a sense of, you know, I had to wake up, go to school, go to training, all those sorts of things. One big change from when you go to, I guess, an elite sports person to then business is you set your own routine. There's nobody there to tell you what to do. You know what it's like with work and everything like that. So yes, I'm still very big on routine. It's pretty much everything for me. I wake up, I do very similar things in the morning. Because business, you don't know what's coming at you that day. So I always think that if I can kind of set that morning up to, I know what I'm doing, then I'm like, okay, what's going to hit me today type of thing. You know, like there's
so much fun, wasn't it?
Well, we had plenty of fun, but there's you know what a day was like. You couldn't say what a day was going to be like ever. Yeah. In our industry.
I think one of the beautiful things about when we worked together and about champion systems and about what, you know, Chris did with that business, you know, like it had a lot of structure, you know, like it had a lot of processes and continued to drive the processes, which really helped, I think, you know, looking back on it, I always think now, you know, you were able to sort of get a bit of a feel of what your day was going to be like before the day started, you know, and so you could say whether it was either an issue that might come about or something that you could get too excited about. It's like, you know, like it was very easy to sort of see those sorts of things happening. And also just the full structure of the week, you know, like that was, I think a blessing for that business and us working together, because we had, you know, the days where we did certain things, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Chris is big on processes, as am I, but you are completely right. I think, again, just speaking about, I suppose, this industry, is that you need processes to a point that get you through the day, because, you know, yeah, depending on what's happened, okay, we've got this issue or we've got this or that. There's a process for it. So you can be quite calm in, okay, I know what I'm doing and this is the process and I have to explain it to the customer. But again, you know that it's always you have to have a bit of leeway in this business as well, to ensure that, you know, depending on who you're talking to, what's going on, those sorts of things, you always, I think, have to adjust. And so yeah, it's interesting because it just keeps you on your toes all the time.
Yeah. And and then expanding on that, obviously life throws you plenty of curveballs as well. You're a new mum. What's, I guess, how have you managed to cultivate a mindset that embraces those challenges, but also then prioritize, obviously, your family and your own personal well-being?
Yeah, definitely. I think that honestly, you kind of knew me. I think we worked together in a phase of life where I was kind of in a bit of limbo, and obviously I was going through some challenges at that time in a previous relationship, which you knew about and whatnot. And I bring that up just to make a point that, whilst I think I've always been a really positive, let's keep going up type person, I've certainly had my fair share of challenges. Funnily enough, motherhood is one that I actually feel the most natural in a role of. I was never sure if I was going to be a mother, just purely based on my circumstances in terms of, that breakup that happened years ago, and I was doing other things and whatnot. But I am so happy being a mother. It's as I said, my most natural role. I feel very, very comfortable and very, very happy in it. But yes, it sort of made me have to obviously reassess everything. In my life, there's no grey. It's very black and white. My family come first, but we've also got a business that requires me to be in it as well. So I tend to just go back to the basics of what I learned, as I mentioned in the beginning, which was probably a good starting off point, because it always goes back to the fact of sitting down and what do I really want? And I sit down and I map out, I guess, the different areas of life now. Before it was a bit easier when I was little because I just had that one goal of netball. Now I've got multiple ones of what I want to achieve with my family, and also what I want to achieve in business and in personal life and with health and with everything as well. So, it just keeps going back to those being really focused on those goals.
And not to dwell too much on the past, but did you find that coming out of a broken relationship, you sort of, I guess, not hit rock bottom, but obviously you go down this steep decline, right? On the exit of a relationship, or whether it's leaving a job or whatever. And then at that pivot point, or at that turning point where you start coming out of it, like it's, often termed as, the rising of the phoenix. You've got to go to the dark place to come back out, right? And you remodel yourself. You learn from your mistakes, and if you have the right mindset and the right tools in front of you, you can really start to, I guess, put yourself back together slightly better than the broken version. Does that sort of, I guess, ring true for you?
Absolutely. Yes. 100% is how you described it is exactly what happened. Again, I think that you're right. I kind of, in a sense, and I don't want to sound too cliche, but I sort of lost myself in that, and I went from this really gun-ho, goal-focused, I want to take over the world type young girl, to being, I guess, a bit trapped in this is what society, you should do sort of thing. And I think that showed in my work at that time over that period. I think I was always conscientious, but I think I was always a bit reserved and pulled back from things. But the moment that, yes, that changed was significant, because I almost felt like the next day I was myself again. And again, I went back to writing down, and actually one of my best friends is on this now, who knows me very well and knows that I sat down and again, literally wrote out, this is what I'm going to achieve now. And yeah, I was at rock bottom, and I had times where I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done to myself? This is crazy. But I think, I've always had that personality of just, all right, suck it up. It happened. No one's coming to save you. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I was relentless in, the pursuit of getting the goals back. I think that I kind of looked back on that time and thought, it's lost time or whatever. I need to pull myself back together. And I think it was that period of, 2017, 2018, 2019, that I had literally hit every single one of the goals that I had set out to do. That was everything from, ones that I didn't even consider. I mean, I ended up going into business ownership. I got on a bike finally. I'd worked at Champion System and I set myself the goal to get on one of the Tour de Cure rides and do the challenge tour. I bought my own property, own car. I completely transformed my life in those few years and became, I guess, the person that I think I was before all of that. And honestly, as cliche as it may sound, just sort of never looked back from that moment. But certainly I think it's one of those things you kind of have to hit rock bottom to reassess, and then you go, up you go.
And so I'm going to keep delving in on the whole goal setting thing, because I think there's some interesting stuff there. Like you said that literally the next day you felt different, maybe a weight lifted off your shoulders, some freedom to make changes that were important to you, maybe. Obviously, you're good at setting big goals, yeah?
Yes.
Do you then set smaller goals on a daily basis? What are the micro steps? What micro steps did you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, going back to that very initial example, I think, have this big goal. It's a vision. It's whatever you want to sort of call it. That's my thing that is always there. And so I set that. But yes, then I go back depending on what it is. Okay, for this next year, for this next month, this next week, for today, what am I doing? And yes, I completely break it down so much. I mean, netball wise, as I said, my goal was I am going to make New South Wales. It wasn't a question. It was, I am here. I focus back on that, and okay, so to get there, I'm going to have to trial for this team, this team, this team. Back it up again. To get to there, I have to go into this. I'm playing for this district, blah, 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 blah. Go back even more so on a day-to-day basis. I'm shooting 100 goals a day. I'm, doing a whatever, 5-kilometer run or whatever it kind of is. I would set it every single day to make sure that I hit that big goal. And it's important that, I tend to not necessarily show anyone, possibly apart from my husband, that big goal, because, I think initially it's sort of like, oh, okay, cool. But I think that what that huge goal's always done for me is just when there are problems that come up, whether that be in netball, whether that be in business, or whether that be in life, it's just, I stay focused, because at the back of the book, there's always that thing that I'm aiming for. So sometimes things go wrong and you can't necessarily maybe do the daily thing that you usually do, but that big goal is always there.
Let's just talk about that big, beautiful man, Chris. I'll say that while he's nowhere near me, because he'd probably put me on my ass. I think, support structure is also critically important, right? When you're striving for a goal, I was actually only talking with Sammy about this over the weekend. I've got a knee injury which stops me from riding my bike, which is doing my head in, and definitely affecting my mental health and my physical health, because I'm fat. But we now really rely on each other, whether that's, for me, right, it's like I need to do all of these rehab exercises that are so boring. So I need, to rely on, I'm asking, for help, saying, hey, love, can you just, give me a poke every day to say, hey, make sure you do these things. Let's try and eat a little bit healthier, because I'm not doing anywhere near as much activity. How important is your current, your husband, Chris, and also your parents and your family and your friends through that period of both your sporting and now into your current life?
The biggest thing by far. I was very fortunate to have grown up in a really amazing family, and you touched on my parents. My parents are honestly incredible people. I've got 2 older sisters, but I always saw a really strong support structure and teamwork between my parents. And exactly that. I mean, they were always very similar to me in terms of do their own thing, gun-ho, get to work, let's do it, that sort of a style of person. But I always saw them work well as a team together. And so I guess I always wanted that for myself. Yeah, Chris to me is both of us having each other, not just in life, but sure in business, but life is a huge thing. We see each other almost, 24/7. And it's a question we get asked a bit, how, at least I do, oh, you work with your husband. But I think the fact that actually we worked with us was because we know how each other works. We know how each other copes under pressure. We know what that person likes, what they don't, all those.
Yeah, wow. Cool. Thanks for sharing. I guess we're way off script. Hey, that was good. We just sort of like asked question 1 and I didn't even get to questions 2, 3, 4, or 5 or 6, but we knew that was going to happen, eh?
100%. I don't mind.
Now that you're a mum and when you get your successes, how do you celebrate your successes?
Yeah, it's a good one. And that's actually something that, again, going back to Chris and I can certainly work on a bit more. I think because we are both very similar in the pursuit of what we're trying to achieve. It may be different things at the time, but we're both very, I don't know what you want to call it, relentless in what we try to achieve. And so sometimes we really need to remind ourselves to stop and to think about that. It's something that we are working on. For us, I think, we do just little things like trips away or things like that can just kind of take us away from that day-to-day structure. I think because we can be so, we can be so disciplined and consistent and those sorts of things, which is awesome. But you kind of need to sometimes just, get away, just drop all of that and to, focus on other things. And we do I think our best thinking when we're away. I mean, the whole idea with Grow Getters group came up when we were in Italy. We both absolutely love it there. We've been both fortunate to spend a fair bit of time there. And, that's where I think the magic kind of can happen in those sort of moments where you do stop. And it's the day-to-day and the consistency, which I think then allows you to achieve it. But you need those times to just stop to sort of think about it as well. And again, you and I are working together, what it's like. Once you sort of get in on the day, it's just bam, bam, bam. You don't really have a chance to sort of, got to dream and think about things to make new things happen.
Yeah. Tell us about Grow Getters.
Yeah, Grow Getters is a business that we essentially, Champsys, going back actually to Champsys obviously being the biggest part and the main part of our business. We knew we had a really awesome community in Champsys, but we really wanted to, I guess, offer other things to them. So it's, for us, we always want a new challenge. Obviously, Chris having done Champsys for 16 years and me for 12, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time, obviously, in the one business. So, with the community that we had, we thought, let's start to bring in other things. And not only is it good for the customer base, but for us as well, because it changes, I guess, our mindset of, okay, it's not necessarily just about custom clothing anymore. You want to come to us for your Italian made retail kit. We use Per Se Cycling. You want to come to us for our netball stuff. We've got Unify Netball. Your helmets, your sunnies, your everything. Grow Getters Group basically brings all of that in together and houses it all in one place, which is good. And really the sky's the limit. You can kind of bring in whatever you sort of want all housed under that, which again, I think for our personalities is also really good because you're just forever doing different things.
Yeah, unreal. And how's Unify Netball going? I mean, and the reason why I asked that is because COVID was shit, right? And so, starting a business at the time that you started, it was probably 2 years before COVID, maybe. Yeah, right. And then you were just getting some fantastic growth. I was seeing your freaking logo everywhere. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and netball stops. Give us a little, snapshot about that journey.
Yeah, interesting. Again, well, you know, when I sort of came, when I came on board, we actually started netball with Champions. And you came to one of the games.
Yeah,
One
loved
of the
it.
So we had already had a little bit of a customer base. But again, it was one of those times where we looked at it and we thought we have such a strong presence with Champion System in cycling and triathlon and running. And we had expanded that business and brought in all these new incentives and really cool things. And as you know, we're well known in that space. But all the branding and everything was obviously, and rightly so, very directed to cycling and triathlon, with those two being, you know, our two biggest sports, that we thought netball needed its own thing. And its target market and everything is so different to that of cycling and triathlon. So yes, enter Unify Netball, which was, it was a real eye-opener for me. Obviously, I went into business partnership with Chris, but Champsys was an established business. It was, you know, kind of, we knew what we were doing. I feel like I could do I know Champsys like the back of my hand, but starting it from scratch, a business from scratch, really made me appreciate business in a whole new light. And yes, we had this awesome launch party and everything like that, and then COVID hit in 2020. So the launch party was I think October 2019, and then COVID in 2020. Anyway, it's one of those things, again, that I was sort of saying that, you know, if you've got a bigger vision, then even though it was a decent hit, I'm not, you know, it doesn't stop you from continuing to go, because I knew what we were trying to achieve, and that was fine. So yeah, we got a few orders in, and then these poor people couldn't even wear the kit basically for the whole year. But I was very fortunate. I think netball, obviously coming from that background, I've always been very comfortable in netball, comfortable with the, you know, the lingo and talking to the people. And a lot of those people actually, they start off, their friends. I can see actually Julian is on there from Connells Point Netball. There's a shout out to you guys, because we've pretty much everybody that we got on board with Unify has stayed. They've been such massive supporters of ours, and the business just grows based on word of mouth as well, which is really awesome. So yeah, it's a cool market, one that's still not at the level of cycling, but we hope to get it there with our online systems and whatnot. It's a really cool space.
Unreal. Yeah, look, I think, you know, massive hats off, chapeau, as we say in the cycling game, because, you know, it was a startup, and you started it up and got smashed in the face by COVID, and have battled through. And I think, you know, both you and Chris have got so much. I think there's, you know, like, there's so much to give young entrepreneurial people, or businesses, should I say, because often some people are trying to be entrepreneurs when they're 50. But, you know, like, I think the lessons and the skills and the knowledge that both of you guys have is invaluable to people. So I really commend you guys on doing what you're doing. The Grow Getters group as well, as it's growing, is really exciting to watch from afar. All right, we're going to get into the fast big five questions. So obviously with the Mental Wheels Foundation, we do research with Macquarie University. The first lot of research was called The Things You Do, and out of that came the big five, which, interestingly enough, we've already spoken a lot about. But those big five, just for everyone out there, as a reminder, are meaningful activities, healthy thinking, goals and plans, healthy routines, and social connections. So we've got a little 5 questions that I want to just shoot at you. Answer them as fast as you possibly can, and we'll go from there. You ready?
Ready to go.
What is one thing you try to do every day that you truly believe in?
Morning routine. So always waking up, walk or some form of an exercise. I always reset the house is a big one for me. My house has to be in order. I'm crazy about it. It's just a problem. So I always make sure that I do the same sort of things in the morning, so that come that time that we go to work, I know that everything else has been put in order.
Name one thing that happened this week that was less than perfect, but perfectly okay, or in the last week.
Yes, the I was so sick. It really set back a lot of things that I obviously had planned for last week, but you know, I had to just deal with it, get on with it, work out how I'm going to fit it in this week. But those things just happen, right?
What is one goal that you set in the last week that gave you extreme fulfillment?
Oh, in the last week, that one is a tough one. What goal did I set? Actually, the goal that I did set was to continue whilst I was sick to do my exercise. Maybe not the smartest thing, but it's what keeps me going in terms of, again, mentally. So as much as I possibly could, I did actually set that I need to stick to that morning routine as much as possible.
Well, interestingly, give me one part of your morning or evening routine that you can't live without.
Yeah, definitely can't live without the exercise. I keep going back to that. I just think that getting out in fresh air, super important. It's needed, and that just sets you up for a good day.
Tell me one conversation you had in the last week that made you feel really good.
To be honest, I always have really good conversations with Chris. Every single morning we have a good conversation over coffee. But in this last week, I also have to give a shout out to my cousin, Kirsten, who I spoke to during the week, and she really helps me with business and being a bit of a mentor for me in actually setting those goals and what I want to achieve in future as well. So I'd say that that was a really good and a really productive conversation for me.
Beautiful. Well, that's our little fast five. Thank you very, very much. Have you got any last words for us?
No, I think, thank you so much for having me. As I said, business and life and everything is very hectic and very full on, but I have a great life and having a lot of fun. And so, as I said, things happen in life, but you just got to keep going. I think that's the main message.
Unreal. And if people want to follow you and or your businesses, what are all your handles?
Gosh, I've got a few. Yeah, follow Grow Getters Group. Obviously, Champs This Oz is a big one for us. Unify Netball and Passay Oz as well is our new Italian cycling range. So give a follow to all of those.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Ali. It was I knew that was going to be fun. I knew that we weren't going to stay on script, and we didn't, and it was both of those things.
Exactly. So thank you. It reminds me of when we did work together. It was always a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. And we're tuning in tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm chatting to Mike Tomalaris. Tomo is going to come on for a chat. And follow us at the Sit Up Challenge and also the Mental Wheels Foundation. And don't forget, 66 sit-ups, 21 days. Invite 60 of your friends and raise $66. Thanks all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.